Hi everyone, welcome back. Hi Martin.
Good evening, good morning, everyone. Good to see you, Ruth.
Yeah, good to see you too. Hi. I hope everyone has been good. Did we do a meetup last week?
Mm,
Last month rather.
I think we had the famous August break. Uh,
Yeah,
Everyone is trying to relax and get ready for the summer, but summer is almost over. So,
yeah.
well, it's all good.
The funny part of this summer is that in Nigeria it has been raining, so
Yeah, like it was raining a lot. I was in Lagos for like a month, so bummed that
yeah,
I couldn't see a road. Lagos traffic is pretty it's
yeah.
pretty,
Like
pretty
and
messed up.
this month has been pretty tight for me. Like so many events back to back, but
Yeah.
no problem. Next time. Next time.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, sure. So welcome everyone to another, sorry for our chit chat, but welcome to another month of GitHub Africa Meetup. We're excited to have you back, and we have a lot for this session. Martins, could you share your screen? I think you're forgetting that part.
Yeah, my screen is on.
um
I don't know if you can see it.
Not sure I can see it, and I don't know why.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm just on the page where we introduce ourselves right now, so I can
Okay,
take.
no problem. I'll do it blind. Okay, I think it's coming up now.
Okay, there you go.
Sweet. Okay, so my name is Ruth. If you're just jumping in our live session, live meetup for the first time, my name is Ruth Ikegar. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm an open source advocate and a GitHub star. And I'll let Martins introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. Martin's here. If you've not met me already, I've been with GitHub for around going to 5 years now. I'm an account executive here at GitHub. I love developers. I love to talk to developers. Like that was how I got started at GitHub because I was initially in my previous life I was trying to be a developer, but that didn't work out. So I went on the business side of things here at GitHub. But I still love to see the developer community flourish here at GitHub and continue to support you guys as much as possible with a focus on Africa. So a real estate investor, was a crypto enthusiast. I'm going to take that.
But it's coming up. I think you should take that back. You take that back. It's
Yeah,
coming up.
I'm just kidding. I still have investments in crypto, but it was a pretty rough start to the year overall for everyone. But it's
Yeah.
getting better slowly but surely. Yeah, like Ruth said, we are happy to be back. We took a little bit of break last month, so lots of stuff for you guys today. So Ruth, you want to take us through the agenda for today?
Sure. So always we do have news. GitHub is always improving stuff. So we do have that section of this meetup today where we run through some news that we have for you. And as always, we have two amazing speakers, Victor and Cliff, and they'll
Mhm.
be sharing quite a lot of things on two different areas in tech. So please keep watching. And towards the end of the session, we have like a networking live session where we play Kahoot games, which is my favorite part of this meetup. So yeah, sit back and enjoy today's meetup.
All right. So for the news, one of the first things we want to talk about is our we GitHub encourages inclusion at the company and even on our platform. That's why we are trying to have these meetups to reach our developers in Africa. But we have this Latino conference coming up. If you want to participate, there's a free English registration as well. So just go to github.co/octo gatos. That's what we call our colleagues here at GitHub that are from Latino origin. So you'll get all the information. I think I was looking through that meetup Eventbrite page. It's September 15,
Yeah.
2022, next month, 11 a.m. To 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you just go to that link there, you'll find all the details and you can register as well to participate as well. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. And I think the second news here. Um, I think we've talked about this a few times, but as you all know, GitHub's security offering, GitHub Advanced Security, is available for all open source projects on the platform. So we're working to secure all the open source projects that we have on the platform. And one of the things we've seen here at GitHub security team is that most of the breaches that we see comes from like leaked secrets, AWS keys and Google keys that get leaked into your code, and someone uses it to mine Bitcoin. So we have a new functionality now where you can run, you can now do dry run your secret. So we have a function in GitHub Advanced Security what we call custom patterns on all of your repositories. So you can do a dry run on all the custom patterns that you've defined in your repositories. Before now, you could only have your administrators do like dry run on, let's say, only a maximum of 10 repositories, but now you can do dry run for all your repositories. So if you have 1,000 repositories in your open source organization, you can check for custom secrets that your developers might have put on the internet. So very important functionality here that you guys can use to secure your projects. I think the last news that I'll cover before I hand over to Ruth is GitHub Pages. So as of this month, GitHub Pages now host over 16 million websites, which is pretty crazy, and
Yeah.
we're getting
Super,
close
super
to.
interesting.
Like I think my first website that I created, I think I hosted it on GitHub Pages. I think my main personal website is still on GitHub Pages as of today. So definitely one of those 50, 60 million people. So we're excited to continue to support GitHub Pages. And another cool addition here is that you can now use GitHub Actions to deploy your GitHub pages. So that's a big improvement. But I think we'll look for the specific documentation that explains how to do this, and send it in the chat specifically. So continue to use GitHub Pages, and we hope you make beautiful websites. Uh, I think you're taking this one, right?
Yeah, so GitHub Project is not generally available for the public. I know I started using this a couple of weeks back. So
Mm-hmm.
you can now get access to like plan your project on GitHub and look at timeline. There are a whole lot of features here on GitHub projects that you can explore, assign people to tasks and a whole lot of things. So please check out like the GitHub project and use it to plan a whole lot of your different projects and track the timeline as well. So please do check that out. And I think that's all we have for today. I
Yes.
know there will be more next month.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
do have interesting things. So please do check them out. And yeah, you could ask questions on the YouTube chat as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you want to introduce the first speaker that we have today?
Sure. I will. So our first speaker for today is Cliff. Okay, we're having Cliff come up first. Because I think Victor just joined in now, so we just have Cliff come up first and let Victor kind of
Mhm.
like settle out. So Cliff is a strategic and creative thinker with the ability to kind of like articulate and present technical matters to the audience. And Cliff will be talking to us about game development in Africa. I'm not a gamer, but I would really love to hear hear more about your session and hear about the work about like game development in Africa and get to know how we can get involved, especially for people that are interested in gaming and creating games. So over to you, Cliff. Thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ruth. And also, thanks, guys, for joining this session. My name is Cliff, as Ruth has said. I am a software engineer. So I have many things I can say I have many skills. I'm a software engineer in one area, I'm a photographer in another area, and I'm also a gamer in another area. And I also build games for fun, for money, for everything that you might think of. And yeah, so most of you guys are interested to know like who is Cliff, what does Cliff do, and where do you really need to see me? So you can get me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I use Twitter a lot, so you can get me there. And yeah, like so, what's gaming in Africa? What are we going to talk about gaming in Africa? So gaming is huge. There are a lot of things in Africa. There's esports where recently we had people from Kenya join the Commonwealth Games and the UK just going to play games and earn those big money. And also there are people who build games. I know there's also a GitHub community where people build games, which is really awesome. And you get to build HTML games, not even hard games like all these things like GTA or Call of Duty, those types of games that people play. And yeah, so like, what is this? Like, what does gaming look like in Africa? So I can for the longest time, like most of you guys have played either games in cafes, have played either a game you saw at your cousins or your friend's place. You went there, played PS4, PS2, PS1, uh, Xbox. You played all those stuff, and you've always been interested in how do you make these games and how are games made. And yeah, like there are different ways you can make games. One, you can make games using HTML, where you just code HTML, and then using your code editor, you can use that to build games. You can also build games for strategic games like board games. So there are things like Snakes and Ladders, Ludo, uh, this other game that I'm forgetting, but I'll just remember it. But those all those are games. All those are used in very many cases. So we can see now, like, since all this stuff has been with us from all this time, like, even I don't know in how in other countries are, but here, so I'm from Kenya, and here in Kenya, there's this exercise books that we use in schools, and they always have different stuff. So there's one you have checkers, there's one you have snakes and ladders, there's one that you have uh, puzzles, like you can match different puzzles. There is one that has different quotes and things that are just see it in the African scene. So we see like we've been with gaming. Gaming has been with us for the longest time, and we can see like the gaming industry is expected to grow 12% during the forecast period of 2021 to 2026. And that's really small. Like some of us think that, oh, so we've seen all these people, we've seen all these games, we've seen all this announcement about gaming in Africa, and we think that gaming is still is huge. Gaming is small, and the community is very large. We can also see like as I said, things like Candy Crush, Waddle, they do tell stories. Like in my own case, I believe Candy Crush is more of a strategic game where you just go on match different colors, and then you win. There's also Temple Run. So Temple Run is has the scene of a jungle where you you run, you're escaping through this beast that is trying to catch you, and this beast is when this beast catches you, you'll be caught and you lose the game. So there are those type of things. There are many different also games. We have serious games, and we have board games like Ludo, and so much. And also like we have things like The Sims. So The Sims has the scene of a city, a town where inside this town you're able to go grow this town, and also through this town you're able to get money, you're able to take care of people, you're able to to take care of the town, be it garbage, be it taxes, how to collect. And also we see like the likes of Malio games, Osiko games, where they're trying to make a mark in the gaming industry. So this people that I've mentioned, they're really key players in the African scene. We saw Malio Games just partnered with Google, and they're offering people this learning platform where you go in, get to learn and make games. And also through making those games, we're able to lift Africa up, and also people are able to play those games. People are able to share their views. People are also able to know what's really happening in Africa. So yeah, I know that's a lot. I've spoken a lot and a lot of things. And right now, what I want to do is I want to share just a few of some of the stuff that I've also been working on. So as I said, I'm a game developer, and also I've been fortunate enough to one win two hackathons. One was a game called Bandit Sugar Ants, where it's a story of how like ants go inside their sugar, and then through that you're supposed to prevent the ants getting into that sugar bowl. And also we have Think Desert Race. So this is a car racing game that is based on a event that usually happens in Australia, and then people race through those that game that desert race. So yeah, so I think I've spoken a lot, and let's see what the Think Desert Race is about. Okay, so it's taking time to load. Let me just start, and I'll also share all the videos with everyone. I'll also share the links and the videos with everyone.
Which way? One you pull up on the block, mic check one, two. Boys all done out, make it jump like a root. Pull up, go fly whenever we come through.
Awesome. So that is one that I was part of. So it's Think Desert Race. And also there's this game called the Avoidance. So this game was part of a hackathon that I participated during the COVID time. And we were so like this hackathon we were tasked on we're told so just create something we were given the areas of health, we were given the areas of weather, and then now it was amongst different countries. So it was called it was held by AR and VR Africa, also sponsored by Black Rhino VR. So I am also a VR developer, and I'm a VR and AR developer. And this application, it was built using Spark AR. So I'm also soon building a mobile game out of it. So where you'll be able, instead of now tilting your head. So you'll be able to now play it as a mobile app. So the story was we have this guy over here. So the smiley, he wanted to rescue his neighborhood because of COVID and what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to collect a lot of sanitizer bottles that you see that are running through with the blue, and then now the red thing like looks like a virus, so that's corona. And then once you hit with that, you'll be able to you'll lose the game. So the new update also comes in where we have the virus and we have the blue bottles. So we have different types of bottles. So we have the blue bottle, we have a purple bottle, and also we have a green bottle, where now you'll be able to collect different types of bottles and they'll give you different types of lives. And also we have a vaccine. So for the vaccine would repel like all the viruses. If you hit with the coronavirus, then it would repel that virus and you'll not lose. And then for the blue bottle, so in case there is a blue virus, it would repel only that blue virus. So where we see now, we had the case where we had different and so many variants that were coming up, and you had to either get a booster shot or get these types of like shots from either Moderna or Johnson and Johnson, those types of viruses. So now, as the game is more of now just telling you about this virus, and then this sanitizer bottle would repel that. So yeah, like that's all for me. I wish there was more time, but I would share more and more stuff, and also I hope to also join in again, and we can build a game live with everyone. Since that's not something that can be done really that easy, but then yeah, hope to join you guys soon and build something out of it. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was really
cool.
cool.
I like the desert
First, I
game.
love the
You're
slide.
hitting camels and like hitting kangaroos.
Yeah, I really loved your slide. It had like that meme there, and it was really funny. So I really
Yeah,
love
yeah.
music a lot, and yeah, the stuff you're doing is really amazing. I also love the COVID, like the game. It also helps, educates people, so it's really
Mhm.
cool. And I love the soundtrack for the video, even though the network doesn't allow enjoy that track very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't worry. So I think maybe I can do I can, let me see if I can find the downloaded video.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I can share it.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Would love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I think please, if you have questions for Cliff, please do ask it, and would send in those questions for Cliff.
Yeah, and we can talk through that as well. Like maybe how Chris got started in game development and similar questions like that for people that are interested, maybe during the
Yeah, and resources too.
session. Hmm. That is awesome. Perfect.
Awesome, Ruth. So I found the video. Can I share my screen?
Oh yeah, sure. Would love to hear watch the full video better.
Okay.
Which way? One you pull up on the block, mic check 1 2. Boys all done up, make it jump like a root. Pull up, go fly whenever we come through. Which way? One you pull up on the
Nice.
block.
I'm definitely going to download this.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like I like I like the song at the end too. That's like
yeah,
cool.
me too.
Yeah, if you can
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks so
if
much.
you can send me the if it's available on any of the streaming app, just maybe share the song with me as well. I like to listen to those kind of songs when I'm like tired and still working in the evening gives me improves my energy. So I like that.
No
Yeah.
worries, no worries. Yeah.
Sure. I
So
think we have
yeah.
a question. Someone's asking on Onadan is asking the best programming language for game development.
Okay, so the okay, game development you can build with any language, but they're like the key languages. So there's one which is C sharp. So C sharp is mostly used with Unity. So now for game development, we have different editors. Just like when you have like Word or you have Excel or Sheets, so this all this application do different things. So Unity uses C sharp, and then we have Unreal Engine which uses C++. But then so those are more of like for the hardcore people or the people who really want to build either console, mobile, or PC games. But then you can use other things like Game Maker, which is like a drag and drop kind of platform where you can actually like build a game right now and launch it right now. There's also Godot. Godot is also same to that, but you can also code inside Godot. There's also I keep forgetting this engine, but it's mostly used by HTML people. So if you really know HTML really well, then you're able to create a game. As well, also you're able to create a game using HTML, CSS, using the Canvas tool or the HTML, and you can build very simple games.
Very cool.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
answering. I think we have two more questions. One is from Tolu Lope. So Tolu is saying, can the games be open sourced? Are there any open source games currently?
I can say games can be open sourced. Uh, for like in terms of creative licenses, then things like graphics, just like how the Think Desertries game that I shared, things like that, then that are more of like trademark because an artist came up with the work, a designer came up with that work, and even like these a designer who came up with that vehicle, like he sat down, 3D modeled it, and created that vehicle. So I can say something like that is hard, but there are simple games that more of wild games that things that you can easily find them like either resources online, and you can open source game you can open source that game, and also you can open it for people to build on it. The other thing also in terms of open source is there are a lot of malwares and attacks. Like right now in the crypto scene, you saw like so they used to be like a huge boom in the crypto gaming market, but then there were a lot of people who are either being scammed
Mm,
through these types of schemes. But then I think it's possible. In my view, it's possible, but then it just matters on what actually is the game trying to do.
hmm.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. I think we have one more question. Think we'll take it together. What are the development tools and programming language used in this your particular video game? And then we'll take also you can also answer. Mohammed is also asking what are the steps for video making process. Maybe you can round that up to can take the two questions.
Okay, so the game that so the Think Desert game was built entirely on Unity using C sharp, and then also for the avoidance game, it was built using Spark AI. So actually, you can just go to Spark. You can search on Google Spark AI. It's a Facebook tool that you're able to create this like filters on Instagram, and using those filters, you're able to even create a game. So you can create something out of it, and people can interact it. They can share a video of it, and they can use it on social media.
That's really cool. Thank you so much. Because of time, we have to move to the next speaker. But if you still have questions for Cliff, please, we have like a networking session after this. You can, I'm sure Cliff will be joining us. So please, you can join in and kind of like
Yeah.
ask Cliff those more questions. So would love to bring up our next speaker now. Martins, are you sharing again?
Yeah, I'm sharing. I'm sharing.
Okay.
So the next speaker is Victor Ikechukwu. So Victor is a front-end developer and a technical writer interested in JAMStack, and he has a knack for breaking down developer concepts, to small bits for people to understand. So he will be talking about docs and tooling, specifically. Um, so you want to dive in, Victor? Introduce yourself. Tell us anything else that I didn't catch in your bio, and you can get started and share your screen as well.
I think you're muted, Victor.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Now.
Hello. Let me just share my screen. All right, you can see my screen now.
Yes, it's loading. Yeah, you can see now.
Awesome. So, hello. I'm very excited to be in this section. I hope we can all learn something and have fun today. I'll be talking about the difference, or not really the difference. I'll be talking about documentation and tooling and how they come into play in supporting other developers and, in most cases, ourselves to effectively use our code. Yeah. So I'll try to like generalize the concepts I'll discuss here because I'm primarily a front-end developer, but these concepts can like be applied to DevOps, backend, and the other tech stacks. So, hello, that's me. My name is Victor Ikechukwu. Yeah, I'm a front-end developer and a technical writer. So that sums up my bio of I code and write about code. Before we get into the topic, let's establish like who is this talk for and like what is this talk all about. So why should you listen to me? The primary audience for this talk would be internal teams working on a company's code base and open source organizations, or anyone that gets to write code that other developers get to use or touch. These are the people I'm speaking to, the primary audience that this talk will be referring to. So let's get into it. For those who may not be familiar with the term documentation, let's do some pretty quick catch up because I want to be focusing on it. So documentation refers to all the materials that explains how our code works and how it's supposed to be used, right? If you have ever used, for example, an API of a company's API, I can't really think of a company right now. If you have ever used of a company's API, before you started using it, you probably went to their sites or you probably searched it out on Google. Then you saw a page where they were like, okay, they listed out how the API works, how you should use it, the process it works. So that's basically documentation. The materials that explains how a code works and how you should use it. So how is documentation helpful? How can it be helpful to you as a team, to open source organizations, to even your side projects. How can documentation be helpful? Well, it helps others use your code. So for for teams launching their code or their API or any code you want developers to use, people need to understand how your code works and why it might be helpful to them before they'll decide to use it. Documentation is a means to accomplish this. You can't go through everyone. You can't, like, when someone wants to use your code, you DM them on Twitter or maybe on LinkedIn and explain. That's a repetitive process. Documentation, once they go to your documentation, it explains this to them. So if people don't know your code exists, they won't use it. If people can't figure out how your code works, they probably won't still use it. So that's how documentation can be helpful to you as a developer, as an open source maintainer, open source project maintainer, as a company. It helps others use your code. Second usefulness of documentation is it enables others to help you out. This applies to mainly open source, but it can apply to internal teams working on a project. So for open source organizations, you make your code open source and developers can come in, contribute, and make it perfect or make it better. But it doesn't work that way. Like, it doesn't exist outside the laws of physics. You can't just make your code open source and everyone wants to contribute to it. You only get contributors after you have released your code, after you have made it open source. Your code can be on your device and developers can start contributing to it. And you only get contributors after they know how to use your code. If I don't know how Java works, I can't code in Java because I don't know how it works. I can't contribute to a Java application. So people, one, need to know that your code exists. Two, they need to know that how your code works. And you can only get people to know how your code works after you have explained it to them. And that's where documentation comes in. Documentation helps you explain this code, or it provides a platform to educate people how your code works for both internal and external teams, more like open source organizations, leading to more people contributing to it. So some people might be like, okay, so what are the benefits of documentation to developers that want to use your code? Not only to developers that want to use your code, to yourself, documentation provides benefits. One benefit is that it improves developer experience. Like, good documentation greatly improves the learning experience and expand the ways developers can use your code. How do I say this now? In a code without a project without documentation, when people want to use your code, they get frustrated when they don't know how it works. Don't know if you're active on Twitter, maybe you will see some once in a while few rants, Twitter rants of people complaining how a company's documentation is out of date. You follow a tutorial, it works on the tutor computer, but it doesn't work on yours. Yeah, that reduces developer experience, leading to unhappy developers. And unhappy developers won't want to use your code again. So documentation improves, makes developer want to use your code. It makes them happy to use your code because they have a resource, an information resource bank they can draw information of how your code works. And the second benefit of documentation is as a company or as an open source organization, good documentation can help you in your hiring and growth goals. So when you're onboarding new developers, new hires, new users, new contributors to your code, good documentation get them to learn and understand how your code works, setting them up for success. You won't have to spend maybe 3 months explaining, maybe having one-on-one meetings, coaching to explain how your code works. They could just go to your website or to your documentation platform and understand how it works. So it helps you achieve your growth goals where you can onboard 10 developers in a month because there is a resource bank they can go back to and find out how your code works. So documentation is awesome. The title of this talk is Docs versus Tooling. And some of you might be like, if documentation is so good, like, what are we still doing here? External documentation, when done correctly, like, is great in supporting developers using your code. It's awesome. But in terms of developer experience, in terms of really making developers happy, is not really always enough and doesn't provide an immediate guidance to the developers using your code. Immediate guidance in the sense when they are using your code in their text editors, it doesn't provide that guidance right away. They'll have to go back to your documentation platform and see how it works. And that type of context switching, no matter how little, could lead to unhappy developers or reduced developer experience. So the solution or what can help out tooling. So what exactly is tooling? Like, what is it all about? What is tooling? Tooling refers to all the documentation tools, all the documentation processes that make our code more maintainable and usable for others. By using these tools, we can make our code more usable and for others directly in their text editors. So tooling is like an addition to documentation to make our code more usable for other developers using it. Let's look at some examples of developer tooling. Type safe code or type safety. When talking of type safe codes provides, or before I go, let's establish what is type safety. In programming, certain languages lets you define types. These types are a reference or an info that describes what's a variable, what something should be, what it should always be. Certain programming languages don't let you define types, like JavaScript, like Python. I think Python lets you define types. I'm not really sure, but I'm certain JavaScript don't let you define types. And this can be really be disadvantageous because computers, there's no finite path to accomplishing something. Some people, you might define a variable as a string, and under extreme scenarios, it could change. It could be manipulated to a number. So type-safe code lets you set expectations of what your code should be. They provide documentation for most parts due to various IDEs and text editors providing support for them. And just by writing code that is type safe, you are making it clear how your code is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be used. So let's see an example. So this is an example of a type-safe code in TypeScript. You could apply to another programming language, but I'm a front-end developer. In this code snippets, if you are a TypeScript developer or don't really need to be a TypeScript developer, it's pretty much self-explanatory. We have a link component that has a class name attributes, a URL class name property or props, URL props, and a children props. And above it, we define an interface. An interface is more of it's an addition to TypeScript that lets you define basically types. That is what this should be, what X should be, what Y should be, what Z should. That's what an interface does, but it comes with more more fun features than types. So in the interface, we define an interface, the props interface. There we define a property class, and we said is type, that is the value that should be assigned to class name should be a string. That's what we want it to be. We defined a URL property. We said the value should be a string too, and a children property that the value should be a React node. Thus, it should be a child object that can be assigned to a React element, a React component. And we pass it, we declare, or in the code, the props that we pass the link URL declares its type as the props interface. This means, or what this is saying is that anytime we are using this link component at all times, the class name should always be a string. We can't reassign a number or an object or an array to it. The URL should always be a string, and the children property should always be a React node. So just by writing our code, we're making it clear how it's supposed to be used. So any TypeScript developer can come across this code and know exactly how it should be used. So they won't want to, when they're using it, make class name an object or a number, because you have already defined how it's supposed to be used. Another benefit of type-safe code is that when you declare something, when you say an object, when you declare a property as an object in type-safe code, it enforces that that property will remain an object unless you change it later. But as long as you don't change it, the language will enforce that it's always an object no matter where you use it. So in this component, we are calling the link component in the previous slide. We passed in the URL to the TypeScript homepage and passed in the React node property as the home text. And then the class name, we are passing in a number. You can see the error, type number is not assignable to type string. The expected type comes from property class name, which is declared here on type. So when using type-safe code, it ensures that we adhere to the rules we had defined. So if this is a library code, maybe this is a code that an internal team for a company is working in. The link component is a component we use repeatedly in our code, and a new hire comes in and wants to use it and pass a string to the class name, a string to the link components. TypeScript would warn them immediately. They won't have to save their code, compile it, go back to the website and see, oh, my code is faulty. Then maybe go back to the documentation to find out, oh, I shouldn't have passed a number to the class name, TypeScript warns them immediately right in their text editor. That's improved developer experience. So that's what tooling, or that's how tooling can help out in making our code more maintainable for others. So external documentation falls, not really falls, but external documentation lacks in this area because switching back from your code to the documentation, no matter how little, is context switching. And if you do this repeatedly, it reduces developer experience for the people using your code and the developers in your company working on your code. And here's another benefit of TypeScript. It's most editors provide support that lets you preview the value of what something should be. So if you notice, this link component is imported into a JavaScript file. In the previous slide, we imported it into a TypeScript file. That's how we could see that error. But in this file, we import into a JavaScript file. So this means even if other developers aren't really using TypeScript for maybe your open source code and they import a component from it into their own code, as long as you use TypeScript in your code, some functionalities like this auto preview will pop up. In TypeScript, in JavaScript, it won't warn them like you want them in TypeScript that, hey, you can't assign a string you can't assign a number to a string, but it will like show them that, hey, this is pops.class name and the two accepted values are either string or undefined, but it won't really like throw an error. But no matter still, it's still improved developer experience because it's warning them right in the text editor without them having to save their code, run npm start, go to the web page and see, oh, there are a bunch of errors everywhere. They'll go back to their code. They won't know what is wrong. They'll go back to your documentation, maybe figure it out, come back, that back and forth. So improved or developer tooling removes that. Type unsafe code, that's code that doesn't have types, normal JavaScript won't be able to do this. We won't be able to accomplish this where we want, or where the code editor wants you write in your code editor before you can even get to save the code and move over to the browser and check it out. So let's see an example of when we are using type unsafe code, how it works. So this is the same code in the link component, but it's written in TypeScript. You can see at the top I made a comment, probably bad developer experience. And never mind this thing that's looking like element class name any URL is just an extension in my code editor that even if I'm using JavaScript, I get to see the types of my variables. But this JavaScript, there is no types. We don't have types anywhere. We just defined, we just defined a link component with a class name and a URL and the children property, and we pass it down to the link. And we're using the link components we defined in the JavaScript code here. If you see, we are passing an object to class name, and our text editor doesn't throw an error. It leaves us, we'll save our code, we'll go back to our site, see that everything has failed, come back to our code, we probably won't know where the error is. We'll go back to the documentation, that back and forth. And at the end of the day, you'll be like, I'm tired of this. I might find another alternative to this library or this product. And also the preview value or the auto preview of what a property should be doesn't really work in types in JavaScript. So in the TypeScript code, we could see that it was saying the class name could accept a value of string or undefined. But in JavaScript, we just see class name any. So it doesn't like pre-warn us right in our code editor. So that's an example of tooling using type-safe code. Type-safe code helps us. It's like documents the code why you are coding it, or it provides documentation to the developers using it, why they are using it in the code editor. It helps you prevent a lot of errors, and it also improves the developer experience of the developers using our code and us using the code, because if we could come back 6 months later and you might not really know that the link component should accept a string variable, a string property, but you are the one that wrote it. So using type-safe code, we could define all those, and it helps us and others use our code. So another type of tooling is documentation generators. You might think of the documentation generators, you might think of maybe Gatsby or Hugo or 11C, all those frameworks. But that's not really it. There are different types of documentation generators. The documentation generators I'm referring to are tools that comes for a package with the language that let us generate in-code documentation from special comments in our code. They let us generate in-code documentation from special comments in our code. Some examples are JSDoc for Python, for JavaScript, Python doc strengths or doc strengths in Python, JavaDoc for JavaScript, for Java. So these are some examples of documentation generators. So I'll be looking at JSDoc. So JSDoc is a documentation generator for TypeScript. It lets you generate in-code documentation from comments right in your code. So here's a syntax of the JSDoc. The comment above is an example of a documentation generator. In this case, JSDoc for JavaScript. So it just lets you describe what the code below it should be. And this is useful and helpful because the next developer will not be in your head. And 6 months later, you won't really remember why you wrote your code that way. So let's see an example of using a documentation generator. This code might be quite long, but it's pretty straightforward. We have a string generator or a string generator component. So it's just a domain component I wrote that theoretically should generate a string, a random string on maybe our, let's say you are just creating an application that needs it. So we passed the properties to the string generator. It has the character, the crop, the font, and the font is an object that have the properties of family, size, and weight. And above it, we defined the config interface, so that explains what our properties are. So we say the character should be a number, the crop property should be a string of either fill or fit, the font property or the font object should have the property of family, which is optional. That's what the question mark does there. The question mark before the family, it donates that the family property is optional. And if it's present, it should be a string. We have the size that says the size that it should be a number, and the weight property that lists out the acceptable numbers. So from 100 to 900. That means you can't pass in any value that aren't in this list. If you pass in 1000, it will throw an error. If you pass in a string, it will throw an error. The value, the weight property access must be within this range or within the properties, the values that we pass here. And then in between them, we are using JSDoc to document how or explain how the property works. In the character above the character property, we said the number of characters in the string. So we are telling the developers that will use our code, this property is the number of characters in the string. The same applies to the font object or the font object in the config objects. It's above it we write defines the font of the string. So we are telling developers, okay, this property defines the font of the string, and the family string use we wrote above it the font family of the string, and we use the parameter at default area. We'll see this in action later, but it's basically telling the developers that this is the default value that the family should accept. You might, if you're using maybe an API that accepts many properties or many attributes, to be like for the ID, maybe the default value is 1, but you can change it to other numbers. So this telling the other developers that will use our code that the default value is area. And the weights attributes above it, we are using the JSDoc to write the font weight of the string at default 400. So we are basically telling them the weight attributes is the font weight of the string, and the default value should be 400. Now, if we can look at this in action, we defined the string generator components in a TypeScript file, right? And here we're importing it in a JS file that doesn't support preview pop-ups, like pop-ups that explains the type of attributes or values a property should accept. That doesn't throw errors when you pass in the wrong value, unlike in TypeScript where to throw an error, type string can be this. But yeah, so we are passing it to a TypeScript, to a JavaScript file. Now, what the JSDoc or what the documentation generator does here is when we are defining this, when we're writing out these attributes or these values, for everyone that had if we go back to the previous slide, for each of these properties that we commented above describing what they did, when other developers or will be using it in their own code, the code editor will bring a pop-up explaining or displaying that information for them. So in this case, we are typing family and VS Code brings up the pop-up, hey, this is the font family of the string. It takes it at default area. So any developers using our code, even us in maybe 6 months, once we're using it, we'll get to like see firsthand that value that the attributes accept without having to like go back to the documentation, and because this is a pretty long or these are pretty long properties you are passing. You have to first pass character, corp, font. So even if you like go to documentation and memorize it, you are likely to forget what each property should accept, the value that each property should accept. So documentation generators helps us remind other developers write in their code without having to go back to the documentation to see that what each code or what each line of code does. So here we can see that. So like this, in this type of areas, this is where external documentation is not really sufficient and where tooling kicks in, where tooling becomes useful. You get? So now let's look at code that doesn't use JSDoc. We have seen code that use JSDoc, how it kicked in and explained how our code was working. Let's look at code that doesn't use JSDoc. So this is the same string generator, the same code. We just removed the JSDoc. Okay, we just removed the JSDoc, the doc that explains how it works. So there is no comments explaining how each line of code works, but it's still pretty self-documenting. You can know what each attribute is. Now, when we use it when we import it into the same JavaScript file, since it's we declared it in a TypeScript file, VS Code will still bring up the pop-up, the preview of the type of values it accepts, each property accepts. So it's telling us that family accepts strings or undefined. That's good, but we don't get the default value here. We can't see that the default value is area. You would have to know that maybe at the back of your mind, or you have to go back to the documentation to see that. So this is where tooling shines. Tooling helped us in the TypeScript when we were using JSDoc to see these things before we could even save our code. So the main benefits of tooling is improved developer experience. So documentation improves the developer experience, but tooling, when combined with tooling, it takes it to a whole new level. So why should you use this tooling? Now that we are aware of these tools, when should we use them? Like, though these tools can be applied in all scenarios when writing code when should we use them? Well, when this tooling really shines is when we're writing code that other developers get to use. They are like invaluable in these cases. Because imagine you wrote that your code in JavaScript without the JSDoc, without type checking, and other developers have to use them. They will definitely encounter a lot of errors they could avoid when you use, for say, type safe code like TypeScript and a documentation generator like JSDoc. So should you prefer one over the other? Should you prefer documentation over tooling? I mean, both are great. So should you prefer one over the other? Well, the answer is no. You should not prefer one method over the other, but you should rather combine both of these methods, documentation and tooling, to make your code more usable. Not only we have documentation they can always refer to, you can improve the developer experience right in the developer's text editor. So the key takeaway for my point here is that external documentation, when done correctly, is great in supporting developers using your code. But in terms of developer experience, in terms of how they use it directly in their code editor, is not always enough and doesn't provide an immediate direct guidance to developers using your code. That's where tooling comes in. By using these tools that I mentioned in the tooling section, we can make our code more maintainable and usable for other developers. And as developers, as managers, as open source maintainers, we owe it to ourselves, to the community, and to all the developers who would eventually use our code to incorporate both documentation, best code practices, and any other tools and processes that will support them to use our code. That's open source to me. That's what open source is all about. So, phew, I'm sure I left a ton of stuff out, but this should be a high-level overview. It's been a pleasure speaking to all of you. It's been a pleasure. You can find me on Twitter, and here are the links to my slide. My name is Victor Ikechukwu, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. This was like a full tutorial session. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
it's a really important topic because documentation, especially for open source, like you said, documentation is one really big issue where we see a lot of projects without good documentation and even
mhm,
properly documented code too. So people that take starts to contribute to it do not even know what to do and how to contribute to the project. So thank you so much for sharing a whole lot about docs versus tooling. I'll also check out the slide myself so I can pick out some of the tools you talked about there.
yeah. I really liked the section on the documentation generators. I think that's a really helpful tool for people to incorporate into their workflows. So thank you so much, Victor. Let's see here.
Trying to look for questions. I think somebody made a comment about nobody should think of using JavaScript after your talk and start using TypeScript.
Exactly, like TypeScript is so cool. Like I see, like I talk to so many companies that one of the things that they want us to support from like security perspectives, like TypeScript. So I see why it's so much better to like use TypeScript versus like vanilla JavaScript. You know.
Martin, don't say this where you see JavaScript developers. They'll come for you. So don't.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
so maybe
God.
we'll have to tie it to JavaScript, but that's by the way. Thank you so much, Victor. I'm trying to look at, please, if you have questions for Victor, you can put it in the chat. I'm trying to look at questions. Don't think I have seen anyone. Just funny comments. But thank you so much, Victor. I hope you'll be joining us for the networking session. We usually play Kahoot games, so it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
sure.
Okay. I think we can go back to the slide. Thank you. I think we have one more thing to go over about the hack mamba. Yeah, this one. So yeah, we have like a hackathon, hack mamba, and there I can barely see the details.
Let me see if I can zoom in. Can
Okay,
you?
I think I can see it better now. I just zoomed in. So these are like the objective for participants that want to get involved. You can scan this QR code um, and also get participate in this hackathon. I think it's from Hack Mamba. So if you scan this QR code, it should take you to the link. Um, it's all about content creation, and Victor just talked about documentation. So yeah, you should
Mhm.
definitely check this out if you're interested in content creator creation and writing technical content, developer. They also do like programs within. I know Hackmamba runs like those even they do I think it's like an agency type where they like kind of like contract people and then get some money to write technical content for some companies. So you should definitely check this out if you are interested in doing this.
Mm. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. I think there's another
Upcoming
event
events. Yep.
coming
So
up. So you can also scan the barcode there to get more
I think
details.
in 2022, by the way, I think there's a mistake here. So but
Oh
this
yeah, this is sorry, this is 2022. This month, I think this should be next week or so. Yeah, it
yeah,
should be
around
next week. Yeah, so go to the link, join um, uh, Jed Verity, and learn more. How engineers are using GitHub projects. I think we talked about that a little bit. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how you can leverage GitHub projects for your open source work, definitely go check out this event next week. I think this is pretty much it for us today, Ruth.
Time for
Um,
questions.
yeah, so do we stay here or we go on Zoom for the Kahoot?
Yeah, I
I'm not
think we're staying. Let me check in with Andrea. Andrea, are we staying here or we're going to Zoom? I
We're
think we have
staying. We're gonna stay here.
okay,
great.
perfect.
So I think Andrea has dropped the link to Kahoot to the Kahoot
Let me stop sharing my
talk, right?
screen.
I think Andrea is going to take over share. Please join us in our Kahoot games. I'm getting ready to win a game. I hope our speakers can join too. Let me share the link here. Okay.
I'm just gonna play on my I'm gonna play on my phone. Let's see.
Is Andrea sharing?
Yes, Andre's sharing her screen. So people on YouTube can still see the screen. So just go to kahoot.it and enter the code and you should be logged in. Okay, people are still joining. I have 11 participants so far. Let me see. Yeah, we should have at least 20 people on this. Yeah, we should have at least. That was super easy. Okay, is Root still on? Give me 50. Very cool. You can now deploy GitHub pages with actions. I remember I mentioned this during my session, so if you're paying attention, you should know this, right? Awesome. That's good. You guys are paying attention. Looks like Victor is leading. Victor, is that you leading? Very cool. Squash or rebase. Both. Our first guest speaker is originally from. Uh-oh. Oh, wow. Very cool. Secret scanning for custom partners is automatically run on public repositories in all products on github.com. I mentioned this during my presentation, so he was paying attention. Very good, very nice. Over 50%, so that's good. Only students in major universities can join the Campus Expert program. I think we've mentioned this in our last meetup. Oh, very good result. GitHub sponsor is available in Kenya, Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, Asia, Gambia. Tricky one. Oh, wow. 100%. Very nice. Tell us the name of the speaker you would like to see here. If you could have one dream speaker, like who would it be? Someone said Elon Musk. Very cool. All right. question 10 of 12. Documentation refers to all materials that explain how code works, true or false. Oh, wow, that's very high. Great job, everyone.
I was trying to play and this did not allow me in.
Uh-oh, sorry, Ruth.
My network, my computer just froze and I couldn't get in.
Oh, I'm using my phone.
Yeah, I tried to use my phone, but I was already back.
Yeah,
Next time.
yeah. Next time you would try and win next
This
time.
guy is just on fire, literally.
Yeah, Victor wants to like just dominate the game. Tooling allows you to improve developer experience, true or false. I love all the animations that go with the questions. Pretty
Yeah, Andrea, how did you do that?
very, very on point.
Just so cool. Okay, let's see. I know Victor is there. Me. Victor, definitely. Yeah. All done. Dominus, Kelvin, and me. And Victor, of course. This was
Awesome.
awesome. Even though I didn't get to play, I knew if I had played, I would have been there. So well done to me too.
Congrats, Victor.
Yep.
I mean, are there any prizes for the winners?
Yeah, I think Andrea would. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you can DM Andrea at Twitter and get to know about your prize. Thank you so much, everyone, for playing, and thank you so much to our speakers. I don't think there are any questions or any questions. So the first three persons, these people that are here, should please DM Andrea. And thank you everyone for attending August meetup. If you want to speak, at this meetup next month, please check out the CFP link and we can bring you up to come share your thoughts on technology. And also thank you to our speakers, Victor and Clay, for sharing a lot. And we hope to see more of you in our next meetup, maybe as an attendee this time, or even as a speaker. Would definitely love to have you speak again. Thank you so much. I think that's a wrap, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.
Sure.